And you've just heard Wait by the Shore, the first track on Snows of Yesteryear's eponymous debut album. And I'm delighted to be joined by Kat and David from the band now. Hello, both.
Hello.
Hello. Hello, Alistair.
So first of all, what can you tell us about the tracks on the album and the album itself? Who wants to take that first?
I think that the album, we see the album as having an arc of, it's almost like one big story with stories within that. And I think we felt that Wait by the Shore was a really good first track because it really kind of epitomised the, idea of where we've taken our influence, Scotland landscapes, history of, different events. And I think the kind of water element is a constant throughout, isn't it? So having something that was, based on the coast and, with that real sadness of what the track was inspired by.
Yeah, I think when we compiled the album, a lot of the lyrical content, a lot of the influence was in nature. It did come from the water, it did come from Scotland's landscapes, and when we put it all together, we probably thought that Wait by the Shore represented that most succinctly. It's, it's quite a short 3 minutes in and out. Sonically, it's got all the elements that we try and get in our music of lots of violins, lots of acoustic guitar and piano, and it just felt like it was the right one to kick it off with. And we spent a lot of time just arranging the album and trying to make it a journey that, I think if people go to the efforts nowadays to listen to an album all the way through, we really appreciate that. And we know it's not always the way people consume music. But for those who did want to go on that journey, we just wanted to make sure we'd given it consideration, and we wanted to put plenty of variation in different tracks and alter the length and the tempo and the feel. So when you listen to it as a whole, hopefully it takes you on a nice 45-minute, in fact, 40-minute?
41, something
41,
like that.
41-minute journey.
Under 45 minutes.
I don't think I've asked this before, it just struck me, but with an album like that then, is it difficult, the track listing? Is there a lot of coming, well, that would fit better there, or that would fit better there?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of that, because we were really conscious of wanting the, maybe obsessing a wee bit about the kind of stories behind the songs and the theme that it was dealing with, and not wanting to have anything that would really clash side by side, but also not wanting to have too much darkness, too much sadness, so we wanted to sort of have a bit of variation and some highs and lows, and make sure that it was not staying in the one place for too long, and it's something that would be a treat for the ear when something maybe more upbeat comes in, and then a quieter track that's a bit more stripped back. Just make sure that it was always going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think that was it. I think you probably can. Some bands might just put them down in the order that they fall or that they're recorded, and that works brilliantly. I think we just early on decided that we wanted to make a real conscious effort to think about the ordering. And yeah, that's right, in terms of the tone and the feel of each song, and just the instrumentation and the length of the song, and just tried to make sure that as you're listening, there's always something new around the corner. Because again, we know that to ask people to devote 41 minutes straight isn't always the way people listen to music, but for the people that do, we just wanted to make sure they got the best experience that they could. But it's very subjective as well. We settled on an order that we liked, but someone else could listen and go, actually, it'd be far better if you started slow and got louder. Or, you can cut it every single way, but we just landed on the plan that we liked.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we thought about quite a lot was the endings of the songs. We've got a good few tracks that have quite big outros, so we wanted to make sure that they were kind of separated throughout, so that it was, these, I think Danny's Waltz, it's like a minute and a half or something at the end of that.
Yeah.
So making sure that there wasn't track after track with these big long instrumental sections, which maybe, I don't know, were possibly a little bit self-indulgent because we got quite carried away with the arrangements of the strings and really building that atmosphere into a big kind of crescendo that we just didn't really want it to stop. You know, it could have gone on, but yeah, so that was a factor as well.
And if Wait by the Shore you feel it is a great opener, which I think it is, the album finishes with Rest and Be Thankful. Is that right? Am I remembering that right?
That's right.
Yeah. So why was that the one that you wanted to similarly kind of, because I'm guessing that these are two important, you know, no matter what comes in between, the start and the end are two ones that you really want to think about.
Yeah, I think it felt like a nice, simple message to end on. We had also realised in the process of recording it, it was a very stripped back recording just because of the nature of the song. We didn't load it up with too much instrumentation. And we noticed, I think it was actually a producer who pointed out, it's the only song where it's just the three members of the band doing their sort of key things, singing, playing guitar, playing violin. And it just felt a nice summation or a nice way to round it off, both in terms of just the way it sounded. It's also, like Kat says, we do tend to build up quite a lot of instrumentation in our tracks, and you know, sometimes it can sound quite grand in places, and we felt that song might get lost if it was in the middle. So thematically, we just thought it fit well at the end, and just in terms of the listener experience, again, it just sat well at the end, and it's got a message of just sort of reminding people that it's good to sometimes be content and good to reflect on where you are and what you've got. And we just thought that was a good message to leave people with, I guess.
There's a lot of looking back and reminiscing and you know, overanalyzing the past in the lyrics in most of the songs. So this did feel like it was there was a sense of optimism and just that kind of being in the now and not looking back, not worrying about what's lying ahead.
I mean, it's a lovely phrase anyway, and the fact that it's got a link to real place, as you talk about, you know, geography being important in the album as well. I think it really it is an excellent way of ending that, considering all that's gone before. So, Snows of Yesteryear as a band, tell us a bit about it and how you came about as a band.
Well, me and Kat met each other at a gig, Camera Obscura.
Yep.
I think it was in the QMU at Glasgow Uni, and pretty soon we realised we had this similar sort of taste in music, and we were both sort of playing music, or we both wanted to go down that road. And then it was a while later that we sort of met Yuka, and Yuka was just absolutely perfect in terms of what we were hoping for. Just, you know, loved the same type of music as us, and she was a real like high caliber musician, and she just was able to slot in and add something incredible to our songs. So with that sort of formation created, we just really knew we wanted to get to our album, to make an album. And we spent you know, a good amount of time crafting the songs and just getting everything the way we want it. And it was just in this sort of lockdown period where we really decided we had to get going with it. And that's where most of the recordings have happened. So
you've been working on this. Did you start working on it pre-lockdown or?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely been like a few years pre-lockdown in the making for sure.
Yeah.
Some of the songs actually, I think, you know, it would have been a few years certainly we're working on them. But some of them came really late, and we literally were writing them, you know, the week before we went into the studio to record. I think things like Last Thing You Remember and Miles Away came really late as well. So we're working right up until we set foot in the studio to pick exactly what we wanted to go on the record.
And how do you work together? How does it work when you approach a new song? Do you come with ideas? How does it work?
I think sometimes it's a case of one of us will have a little melody or a chord progression, and we'll take that as the starting point build, you know, lyrics around that, think about the story behind the song, or sometimes, you know, I'll come with a set of lyrics that I've been working on, or even just some phrases that I like, and kind of take it from there. But a lot of the themes of the songs, you know, they have been based on kind of past events and relationships, and I think it's really good when you can take something that's really personal and show it to someone and say, I would like to make this into a song, and the other person gets what you're trying to say, and just having that kind of sensitivity to not just come in and like play really loud all the way through, and just, you know, thinking about the arrangement and how to just let the story of the song kind of breathe and have its own space, and, you know, sensitively weave the instruments around that.
I think we've probably written on the album in every possible combination. I think there's probably some songs that were completely written by me musically and lyrically.
Yep.
Then the same for Kat, and then every combination in between where I've written some lyrics and Kat's put music to it, vice versa. And as Kat says, all the way ranging literally up to two of us sitting, picking the next word together, writing it, you know, as two people just sort of bouncing the ideas off each other and trying to work out what the next chord will be or the next sort of motif will be in the song. So yeah, and that tends to work really well. It means that nobody has the responsibility of delivering everything, and it means everyone gets to try their hand at everything as well. Everyone gets to do a little bit of everything creatively, and that seems to just be the way we work it. And at the end of the day, we just see what songs we've got available to us, and then it's just a discussion about which ones make the cut. And that tends to come pretty easily to us as well, because I think we've got a similar taste.
Yep, definitely. I think when it comes to, you can get really stuck in your own head as I guess a creator of anything, you know, and just overthinking every little word. And, you know, I've got notepad upon notepad, boxes of notepads, where it's, you know, working and reworking songs with just the tiniest little change. So it's really helpful to have somebody and just, you know, bounce ideas off of each other. And, you know, there's been times where that's happened lyrically, and also with working on chord progressions for songs where you think, actually, this needs a minor chord here, and just to take it in, you know, a slightly kind of darker avenue.
Yeah, it's good to have an editor that you trust who can take what you're doing and say, this is the best of what you're working on. That's, maybe we can put that to the side, and that sort of collaboration works quite well. But yeah, I think we've just fallen into a good pattern for that.
Yeah, definitely.
Quite lucky in that respect.
Yeah, and I think we both have Logic on our computers, so it was really helpful, especially during lockdown, when we were able to keep working on songs and send each other different versions, and, you know, using virtual instruments to get a sense of how we're going to record the songs. So we do spend a lot of time demoing songs and exploring different versions before we decide on how we're going to actually record it.
It's really interesting talking to you. I think the idea of trust is obviously hugely important, particularly if they're personal songs, as you said, Kat. You need to, you know, trust the people that you're showing them to, or the person that you're working with. But the other thing that comes across when I listen to the songs is this idea of care. Great care seems to be taken about the music, about the lyrics, about the themes behind it, you know, the things that you obviously care about yourselves. And yeah, it does seem to come across to me as a listener that, you know, nothing's there that you feel shouldn't be there. And I'm just wondering whether the time it's taken, I guess partly due to lockdown, do you think this would have been a different album otherwise, or do you think you would always have reached the point that you have?
I think it would still be what it is. I think we had a clear enough vision for what we were looking to do, and because we had you know, kept revisiting the songs and, you know, making different changes and thinking about how, you how big we wanted them to get in places. I think by the time we got into the studio, we were pretty clear on what we wanted the kind of feel of each song to be like. But having Matty, you know, in the role of producer and percussion drummer, having that as a new, you know, compared to having a virtual drummer or programming in drums yourself, that just felt like an absolute game changer to have him and Kevin on bass. It was just all of a sudden you felt like you were in a lift that was stuck on the ground floor, and then all of a sudden it's just you're like boosted up, and it brought the songs to life.
Yeah, I think,
really did.
I think we're the sort of people who, given enough time, we would just continually edit the songs and rework them, and we're quite we do get quite focused on little changes and stuff like that, and we could have spent another year or two easily tweaking the song. So if anything, lockdown was maybe just the firing gun that said you need to do things when you can do them, you know. So we need your time booked, we need to move this forward quickly.
I think like a lot of people, there was that kind of sense of, I don't know, kind of regretting the things that you just should have done. Like, what were you doing, putting things off and, you know, holding back for the right time, when actually you just need to go for it. You know, life's short and you have to make the most of the opportunities you've got, and, you know, having people around you that totally get what you're trying to do music wise, and really make that. So I think probably you're right, it was partly fueled by that point in time and what was going on round about us. I
think so. I think as well, this sort of sense of isolation was a bit of a theme of the album as well. So maybe that did help or influence some like song choices. Things like Last Thing You Remember do have that sort of
kind of a bit bleak.
That bleaker feel. So it maybe influenced it in that way as well. In that it just sort of set our mind to where it was, or it would have always roughly covered those themes, but I think it maybe just tipped the hand or tipped the scale a bit more in that direction, I guess.
And it's interesting how songs can take on a new meaning, you know, as you know, you can write something at a point in your life where it's very much your way of having you know, processing what's happened and reflecting, and it's almost, you know, it can be very cathartic, but then a new situation can arise that, you know, makes the song even more relevant to that point in your life. So I think Last Thing You Remember, a couple of others like Miles Away probably as well, just that kind of wanting to just escape and be somewhere else, be at a different point in time. So I don't think there was anything that was necessarily written during lockdown. There were, you know, songs that were kind of finished off, but I think, like a lot of music that we all listen to now, you do kind of interpret it with things that have happened more recently.
I totally get that. I mean, I've spoken to a few bands and musicians where people assumed what they'd put out had been a reaction to lockdown or whatever, or to COVID. And I said, no, I'd written this 5 years before, or I'd started this 2 years before, or whatever. But I guess we read our lives into the stuff we listen to, the stuff we read, and all of those things, and you kind of make listeners, you know, as you said yourself, you can't affect how listeners are going to receive it. And I think also you're saying it's there, a lot of the stuff's quite personal, but it seems to me that the personal is almost what people identify with most, because they, you know, often these are situations that they themselves have either been through or can relate to.
And it's so great when you get that with a song. It really is. It's just magical when you hear something and you think that you just absolutely get where that person has been, you know, what headspace they've been in, and just it feels uncanny that you just feel like it's almost been written about your exact situation. It's nice. I think it gives you it's a less kind of lonely feeling if you're stuck in a, you know, a tricky place going through something hard, to feel a song and know that this, you know, somebody else just gets where you are at that point.
Absolutely. I think it's a hugely important thing as well. So how do you feel now that the album's out? Do you re-examine it? Being perfectionist, do you go, oh, I wish I'd tweaked that just a little bit more?
You know, I think I don't think I could be proud of it.
Yeah, no, I think we're very happy with where we got it to.
Yeah.
Definitely. It was at times a long process, and we really did put a lot of sweat and effort into it. Yeah, but no, delighted with how it sounds and
absolutely
everything about it. Yeah, so pleased.
And they sound like songs to me anyway that are you know, are going to sound great live. So are you going to take them live? Is that the plan, to take the album out or play a few gigs?
Yeah, we're hoping so. We're hoping to organise a sort of mini tour in Scotland, and you know, there'll be settings that are more suited to just having the three of us. You know, hoping to play some like nice folk clubs and kind of smaller, more intimate venues. You know, maybe places where there's not such a big kind of music scene, so that, you know, when gigs are put on, it's something that brings a community together, rather than, you know, sometimes you're just absolutely spoiled for choice in like Glasgow and Edinburgh. There's so much happening, but it'd be nice to play in places where you are really going to be part of that place and that community, by taking your music there.
Absolutely. And there are places that I know still don't get many bands visiting in comparison. Now we get more than used to, but there's still that thing, and people just are really wanting the live experience, whether it's music or something else. It's absolutely vital.
Definitely. I think we want to try to do the music as it sounds, played by the three of us. And I think we're also going to try, if we can, to see if there's a way we can try and reproduce the album in full live, but we're conscious that's a bit tricky just because the amount of instrumentation we piled on.
I think we would need to each be, certainly Yuka would have to be cloned quite a few times.
In order to get all those violin parts.
And I think there maybe need to be at least three of
each of us.
The two of us as well. So I've got some planning to do for that. But yeah, certainly for just the three of us, I think it'll be really nice. Looking forward to it. Hoping to I'd really like to get some of the islands up north. I love the Highlands. So that's an absolute must.
Well, when you do have any dates, do let me know, and I will let the listeners know all about it. David and Kat, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I think it's a great record. I really do. I've really been enjoying listening to it.
Oh,
thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us on.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. And this is Snows of Yesteryear and Miles Away.